Okay, boys, so today we are going to first of all learn the structure of the heart, and then we will also learn about the cardiac cycle. First of all, I'm going to teach you how to draw the diagram of the heart. Those of you who are my old students, they already know how to draw it, right? But the students who did not learn from me before, they will learn today, right? Easy way, right? And a perfect diagram you will be able to draw, inshallah. Now, what do you do? That first of all, you draw a circle, and then you draw a second circle. After that, what do you do? That you draw a V, right? It has taken the shape of the heart. Right, boys? The next step, what do you do? Come here, one boy. Sit here. We bring this tool from other class, other lab. Bring these tools. Okay. Next step, what do you do? That we rub from here, right? We rub from here, we rub from here, and we rub from two places, from here and here. Alright, boys? After that, what do we do? That we bring one line down from here and one line from here, like this. Second line, we draw like this, and we have this. Alright? Next step, we do this, and I will draw another line over here. Why did I do this? I will tell you later, inshallah. Right? Then we do this, and then we draw two blood vessels over here. We also draw two blood vessels over here. Where these two blood vessels are going, I'll explain step by step, inshallah. Alright? Next step, what do we do? That we draw a zigzag line over here, like this. Come down, go up, down, and here like this. Alright, boys? Next step, what we are going to do, I forgot to bring the blue one. Next step, what we will do,
Can you ask us to make a heart diagram?
yes, no, not draw, but you should know. Then you see, it becomes easy for you to label it. Next step, boys, what do you do? That you draw one line from here like this, and then you go parallel to the first one, and then you see this blood vessel which went up, it is coming down from the back of the heart, and you will draw over here. Saad, I think so, it's you. Then what do you do? That you rub from here, and from here. Right? And then what do we do? That we draw three blood vessels. Alright? Next step, what do we do? I'm using the green colored marker for this one. We start from here, we go up, and then second line parallel to the first one. But when you reach up, you bifurcate, right? And like this. So this is our diagram of the heart, right? Rest of the structures which we need to draw, we'll draw them later and we'll talk about them. Now let's discuss step by step. First of all, guys, remember one thing: whenever we label any our body's organ, we always label it according to our original position and the position of the organ. Right now, when I'm standing over here, this is the heart, this is the right side, and this is the left side. Right? Always, you see, let's suppose if you are drawing, always put the paper like this. So this one will become right side and this one will become left side. Right? So remember that this over here, this is the right side of the heart and this is the left side of the heart. This is right atrium. And this one is the left atrium. Then this one over here, this is right ventricle, and this one over here is left ventricle. It means that our heart has 4 chambers, right? 2 atria, atrium is singular, atria is plural, okay? And 2 ventricles, ventricle is singular, ventricles is plural, right? Now guys, next thing, this blood vessel over here, I am teaching you circulation as well at the same time. This blood vessel is called as inferior vena cava. Now, vena cava is the largest vein of our body. There are 2 vena cavae. Vena cava is singular. If I put E at the end of E, at the end of A, AE, then it becomes vena cavae. 2, it becomes plural, right? And this one is called as superior vena cava. Now the inferior vena cava, why is it called as inferior vena cava? Because it is bringing the blood from lower parts of the body. From both legs, from abdomen, from lower parts of the chest. Understood? While the superior vena cava is bringing the blood back from the head, face, neck, both arms, both shoulders as well, and upper part of the chest as well. Alright? So what happens, and you see these blood vessels, they are bringing the blood back, that is deoxygenated blood. This is the blood that has distributed unloaded oxygen, right? So this blood, you see, I am representing it with the blue color, right? So this is the blood coming from the lower parts of the body, and this is the blood coming from the upper parts of the body, and this is what? Deoxygenated blood. I am representing it like this. Right? Now, how blood comes over here, that I will explain in the cardiac cycle, inshallah. Right? Right now, we are only discussing the circulation. Cardiac cycle we'll discuss after the circulation and the structure of the heart. Then what happens, that the blood passes through this valve. Now, this valve is called as tricuspid valve. Now, these are 2 words, tri and cusp. The word tri means 3 and the word cusp means flap. The word cusp means flap. Now, there are 3 flaps, 1, 2, and there is a third one on the top of that, right? So there are 3 flaps in this valve. That's why this is called as tricuspid valve. Now, you guys have learned in lower grades that the job of the valves is to what? To prevent the backflow of the blood. So what happens, that this deoxygenated blood, it enters into the right ventricle. Now what has happened, that this deoxygenated blood is in the right ventricle. Alright, boys? Yes.
So why is there 3 flaps?
Yes, we'll discuss this later. We'll compare it with this valve, inshallah, then I will tell you, okay? Then what happens, boys? Now, you see, what is happening that you see the blood is going out and coming back into both atria and both ventricles at the same time. Right now, I am moving step by step. I will explain it again at the end, inshallah. Then, the blood from the right ventricle enters into this blood vessel, which I drew with the green color. And I am showing this blue arrows to show that the blood is going from the right ventricle into this direction, right? Now this blood vessel in which the blood entered from the right ventricle, this blood vessel is called as pulmonary trunk. The question is, why is it called as pulmonary trunk? Because it is taking the blood, deoxygenated blood, towards the lungs. Now when it goes up, it divided into 2. Why did it divide into 2? We have 2 lungs. Now let me tell you one more thing. This blood vessel divided into 2, right? Then each blood vessel further divides into 2. 2 blood vessels enter into the lungs, right? Now this one is called as left pulmonary artery. What is it called? Left pulmonary artery. You guys know that. We have learned that arteries are the blood vessels that take blood out of the heart, away from the heart. Understood? So this is taking the blood to the left lung, so that's why it is called as left pulmonary artery. While this one is called as right pulmonary artery. Now what will happen? That this right pulmonary artery will take the blood to the right lung, right? And left pulmonary artery will take the blood to the left lung. In the lungs, what will happen? Oxygenation will happen, right? Due to partial pressure difference, as we learned yesterday, exchange of gases will take place, right? Carbon dioxide will be removed from the blood and oxygen will be absorbed, will be taken up by the blood. Then, boys, I'm going to show with the red color now the oxygenated blood. The oxygenated blood will go from the lungs into the left atrium. Now, look here. I told you that I will tell you about these 2 blood vessels which I drew over here. Right? Now, these are 4 blood vessels. These 2, they are called as left pulmonary veins. As I told you over here, that this blood vessel divides into 2, right? And 2 enter into the left lung. This blood vessel also divides into 2 and 2 enters into the right lung. Same, 2 blood vessels come out from each lung, which have oxygenated blood. Right? So this one over here, these 2 blood vessels, they are called as right pulmonary veins. Now what happens that these 2 blood vessels, they go into the left atrium from the back side of the heart. Now let's suppose that this is the heart, right? And these 2 are right pulmonary veins. They will go from the back side and they will enter into the left atrium. Understood? So this is how they enter into the left atrium. Now, next thing, what has happened now that the oxygenated blood has reached into the left atrium. Again, how the blood enters from left atrium to the left ventricle, I will explain it during the cardiac cycle. Then what happens that blood from, which is oxygenated blood, passes through this valve And this valve is called as bicuspid valve. Again, the word bi means what? Two. And cusp means what? Flap. So over here, there are two flaps only, right? Now, before we discuss the difference between tricuspid and bicuspid, let me tell you one more thing. This bicuspid valve is also called as mitral valve. What is it called? Mitral valve. Now, question is, we can understand it is called bicuspid because it has two flaps. Why is it called as mitral valve? Now, the reason behind is that you guys have seen Pope, right? The Christian head, right? You have seen him wearing long cap. His long cap looks like this, right? This long cap, which looks like this, is called mit. And the shape of this bicuspid valve matches the shape of the Pope's cap. That's why they have given it the name mitral valve. Interesting or not? Right? So the shape of the valve matches the shape of the cap of the Pope. That's why they have given it the name mitral valve. Yes? No. No. We'll talk about them when we'll come over here. Again, semilunar valves. We'll talk about them.
In the diagram, isn't the wall of the left ventricle being thicker?
Look here. Did I make thicker or not?
It is
Yes. Come in the front and so see. It is thicker.
slightly.
Right? I did make it intentional. Now, look here, boys. Next thing that what has happened. Now the oxygenated blood is present here in the left ventricle. Now what will happen that the left ventricle contracts and the blood enters into this blood vessel which I have drawn with the blue color, and I am making the arrows to show the direction of the flow of the blood. Right? So in these directions the blood flows. First of all, this blood vessel is called as aorta. What is it called? Aorta. When this aorta goes up, it divides into three and it bends from the dorsal side and comes down. Now, first of all, we need to understand what is dorsal side. Now, what do you think? Which side is my upper side? This is or this? This. Very good. This is my upper side. This is my lower side. Now, if you see a lion is on 4 feet, right? The upper side, this side, that is called dorsal surface. What is it called? Dorsal surface. And this side is called as ventral surface. So remember that this is our dorsal surface and this is our ventral surface. And these are called as lateral surfaces. These are called lateral surfaces. So remember this: dorsal, ventral, and lateral. Now, boys, as this blood vessel, this aorta, went up and went down from the dorsal side of the heart. From the dorsal side of the heart. So when it comes down, it is given two names. Nowadays, in the new books, they simply call it as descending aorta. But in the old books, they only used to call it as dorsal aorta. Right? So if the word is mentioned descending aorta or dorsal aorta, means the same thing. Don't be confused. Right? Now, what about these three blood vessels you see when it's divided into? Now look here at this blood vessel. This blood vessel is called as left subclavian artery. Now, do you know what is the name of this bone, collar bone? Clavicle. What is its name? Clavicle. So a blood vessel is going under this blood vessel. It's under this bone and towards the left arm. Right? So as it is passing under this bone, so that's why it is called as left subclavian artery. Understood? This one is going to the right shoulder and right arm. This one was going to left shoulder and left arm. This is going to the right shoulder and right arm. So this one is called as right subclavian artery. Now, this one. This one is called as either carotid artery, and now it depends on the position where we are labeling it. It depends on the position where we are labeling it. If we are labeling it over here, then it is called jugular artery. Right? Over here it is called what? Carotid artery. Now this carotid artery or jugular artery, then it divides into two. One goes to the right side and other goes to the left side of the brain. Eventually, you see, purpose is to reach to the brain, right? So it goes to the brain, yes. Then it will divide over there. Got it? Understood, everyone? Now, before we move forward, let me tell you two things. That we also have two valves present in pulmonary trunk and also in the aorta. Now, one valve is present over here and drawing it over here. Right? And one valve I am drawing it over here. Now, this valve which is present in the aorta, this is called as aortic semilunar valve. Now please pay attention. The word semi means what? Half. Lunar means what? Moon. So the flaps of these valves, they are half moon shaped. The flaps of these valves, now this valve is called as pulmonary semilunar valve. The valves of these the flaps of these semilunar valves, they are the shape of the half moon, right? So as they are the shape of the half moon, that's why they are called as semilunar valves, right? Still the labeling is not finished. There are few more things you need to know. First of all, guys, look here. We have space so we can label over here. Look here, this thing. This is a wall between the atrium and the ventricle. This wall is separating the atrium and ventricle. This is called as Inter-Atrial Ventricular Septum. What is it called? Inter-Atrial Ventricular Septum. Now remember one thing, guys. Wherever you see this word septum, it means wall. Right? Wherever you see the word septum, it simply means what? Wall. Right, guys? So there is this wall which is present between the atrium and ventricle. So remember that there are two atria and two ventricles. So this is also called as inter-atrial ventricular septum, and this wall will also be called inter-atrial ventricular septum. So I am labeling just one. Then, guys, if you see over here, this is the wall in between two ventricles. Interventricular septum. Simple. Now boys, it is going to become a little bit more interesting now, because I am going to explain you something very, very interesting. Look here boys. Right now, I explained you whole circulation separate ways. Right side separate and left side separate. But when we talk about double circulation, if you guys remember, we have learned about double circulation and single circulation, right? In O levels. Double circulation is that the blood passes through the heart twice in one circulation. Blood passes through the heart twice in one circulation. Now look here, that both atria, they will collect the blood or they will receive the blood at the same time. Understand? Right now when I was explaining that, I was explaining step by step. But actually what happens, that from both lungs, the blood will come over here into the left atrium, and from the whole body, the blood will come into the right atrium at the same time. Then, from both atria, blood will come into the ventricles at the same time. Right? And both ventricles, they will contract at the same time, and they will pump the blood out of the heart at the same time. Means that at the same time, blood will go towards the lungs as well and towards the whole body as well. Now here there are two terminologies which we need to remember. One terminology is systole and other terminology is diastole. People pronounce it systole, diastole, wrong pronunciation. What is the correct pronunciation? Systole and diastole. Okay? Now remember one thing, boys. Remember one thing. Whenever just simply the word systole and diastole is written, what does this mean? When it is written, it means contraction of ventricles. And when diastole is written, it means relaxation of ventricles. The question is here, sir, atria also contract. What about them? How do we represent them? So if the examiner or someone want to specify which chamber of the heart is contracting, then they will write the names with it. They will write atrial systole. They will write atrial diastole. Right? They will write ventricular systole, ventricular diastole. But if no atrial, no ventricular is written, just the word systole and diastole is written, it simply means it is related to ventricles. It simply means that it is related to ventricles, because most contraction, pressure is produced by the ventricles. Understood? Another thing, boys, we know, you see, if you pay attention, I drew this, you see the distance between this line and this zigzag line, I drew shorter distance, and over here I drew a larger distance, right? To show that the right side of the ventricles wall is thinner and the left side ventricle wall is thicker. Now, why right side ventricle wall is thinner and why left side ventricle wall is thicker? Because right side just has to pump the blood to the lungs and back to the heart. Now, please pay attention towards the words I am saying. Towards the lungs and also back to the heart. While the left side has to pump the blood to the whole body and back to the heart as well. Now if you just say that it pumps the blood to the whole body, it's an incomplete story. You also have to mention back to the heart, because with the same pressure, there is not another heart in your legs, right? Is there any? To pump it back up? No. So it means that same heart is pumping the blood to the whole body and also back up. Got it? So that's why you have to mention it. Yes.
When blood is returning from the lungs, it is due to the pressure of right ventricle.
Exactly.
It is so much pressure.
enough pressure. And another thing, we will, you see, that is not in your syllabus, but actually, you see, when artery, or you see, aorta has the highest blood pressure. When it divides into arteries, the pressure starts decreasing. Veins have low, you see, and then eventually the lowest pressure is where in the capillaries. Then capillaries join together to make what? Venules. Pressure increase. And when venules join together to make veins, again pressure increase. Understood? Yes.
How does the pressure increase?
Because you see, more blood and more liquid is coming. Right? But still that pressure is not very high. Have I told you how much is the pressure in the veins?
Yes, sir.
I have told. I remember.
5.
How much? Yeah, very good. Excellent. 5 millimeters of mercury. Right? And how much is the pressure over here? 120 millimeters of mercury. Understood? Yes.
Sir, if it's such a high pressure, why is there lead valve?
Why the?
Valve, like, isn't the pure valve the pressure is left where it falls?
Bring this tool. So I did not understand your question.
Like the whole point of valve is that pressure is low, so it represents.
No. The whole, you see, I'm going to explain this. I'm not finished yet. Because I have to tell you about the pressure maintenance as well over here, LV valve. How the valves work actually. This is the next thing which we are going to discuss. Okay, boys. Yes. Left ventricle wall is the
It comes to the chart.
Yes.
It's going down in just water gravity, so what's the point?
Not only gravity, pressure as well. Pressure as well.
You did not know that? It's not just
Yes.
gravity.
Okay, yes. Quickly.
How does the contraction of the leg muscles
We'll discuss this.
Can you see the lateral space surface?
Left?
Lateral surface.
Lateral. These are lateral surfaces.
And the other one,
Ventral, dorsal.
lateral is under.
Yes, lateral side ones. Yes.
Get the pressure in.
Okay, boys. Now please pay attention. Yes. Then, in the veins it has highest pressure. That is 5 millimeters of mercury. Yes. Right?
The blood in the lungs is coming from the lateral side.
Yes.
The pressure in inferior vena cava and superior vena cava is entirely supported by the left ventricle.
Exactly. But that pressure developed because when the capillaries join together to make venules, pressure increased. Venules join together to make veins, then pressure increased more. Right? Now, boys, please pay attention. I cannot draw the structure over here. Yes.
So when blood is pumped out of the heart, shouldn't the pressure be more? Like in the arteries?
It is more.
Then in the veins, you said in the veins there is more pressure.
No.
So
When did I say that?
You just said that.
I said that when the capillaries join together, they make venules. Then the pressure increases from capillaries to the veins more.
Arteries still have heart.
Yes, highest. Arteries, aorta has 120 millimeters of mercury pressure. And the highest pressure detected in a vein is 5 millimeters of mercury. 115 millimeters of mercury difference is there. Got it? Now boys, next structure in the heart which you need to know and which you need to understand. I cannot draw over here, there is not enough space. So I am going to draw a very small diagram of the heart and I am going to tell you. Now, look here. I will only draw the structures which are required over here. I will not draw rest of the structures. Alright boys, look here. I am not drawing rest of the structures because they are not related right now. Right now we are going to also discuss how these valves operate. Now I told you that I will tell you why did I draw this extra line over here to show 3 flaps. Right? This is a 2-dimensional diagram. I could only represent a 3rd flap like this, right? So this is a 3rd flap. Now, so these are 3 flaps. Now when these atria they will contract, and with the pressure of the blood which is coming from the outside, these flaps will automatically open and blood will flow into the ventricles. But when the ventricles will contract, there will be high pressure. 120 millimeters of mercury pressure is developed by left ventricle. 80 millimeters of mercury pressure is developed by right ventricle. It has thinner walls, remember that. So right side will develop less pressure. So as it has so much high pressure, what will happen? There is a chance that the blood can flow back, right? But blood should not flow back. That's why Allah has provided these what? Valves. Now what can happen? That because of the pressure of this, you see this blood, the flaps they will close, but the pressure is so much high that the flaps can overturn. Got it? That you see, look at these are, let's suppose this is a bicuspid valve. Because of the pressure, this bicuspid valve is closed, but pressure is so much high that the flaps they can get inverted, right? They can go back up into the atria and blood still can go back. So there must be some mechanism to prevent this back, you see this flaps to go back. For that purpose, what is there? That we have special kind of muscles and tendons which are attached with the heart and the flaps. Please pay attention. Pay attention here. Now, with the red color, I am going to show the muscles. So these are what? These are muscles. And with the blue color, I am going to show the tendons. Now remember one thing, whenever muscles attach to another structure, they always attach with the help of a tendon. I have this bicep, it is attached with my radius, right? It is attached with the help of a tendon, okay, a rope-like structure which is made up of proteins. So what happens that this is a muscle and they are attached with the flaps and with the wall of the heart with the help of tendon. Now guys, please pay attention. These muscles, they are called as papillary muscles. What are these muscles called? Papillary muscles. And these tendons, they are called as chordae tendineae. What are they called? Chordae tendineae. Now they are like strings attached, right? Now what will happen? That when the ventricles they will contract, with ventricles the papillary muscles will also contract because they are part of the heart, right? And when these papillary muscles will contract, they will pull the tendons. They will pull the tendons, and when the tendons will be pulled, the flaps will be prevented from going back. Understood? So flaps, they will be kept at their position, closed. Understood? So this is how the backflow of the blood is prevented from the ventricles into the atria. Understood again? Listen again, boys. These are muscles I have shown with the red color, right? And the muscles are attached to the flaps with the help of tendons which are called chordae tendineae. Muscles are called papillary muscles. When ventricle will contract, at the same time these papillary muscles will also contract. Because of that, there will be a pull on chordae tendineae, right? And that pull will prevent the overturning, back turning of the flaps of the valves. Understood, everyone? So this is how these valves they work. Yes?
That is chordae tendon is singular or
Plural. It's plural. Chordae tendineae is plural. Okay? Very good question. Next thing, boys. Come back to systole and diastole. Now when the ventricles will contract, when the ventricles will contract, the left side will pump the blood into the aorta. Right side will pump the blood into the pulmonary trunk. Right? At that time, what will happen? Guys, this is very interesting fact we are going to discuss. At that time, what will happen? After most of the blood has flown into this aorta and pulmonary trunk, the pressure in the aorta and pulmonary trunk will be high and pressure in the ventricles will become low because there is less blood now. Right? So things always move from higher pressure to... So blood will try to come back in both aorta and also pulmonary trunk. It will try to come back from high pressure to low pressure. Should it come back? Answer is no. It should be stopped. For that purpose, there are semilunar valves. Aortic semilunar valve and pulmonary semilunar valves. Now, when you go to the doctor, or you see if you are running, you also can feel your heartbeat. The sound is not duck duck. It's in the movies, right? In reality, the sound is lub dub sound, right? Now, the lub dub sound is actually, you see, I interpret as clapping of the heart. I interpret it as clapping of the heart. When this aortic semilunar valve will close, lub will come. And when pulmonary semilunar valve will close, dub sound will come. So, I simply say that you are alive till the time your heart is clapping. Once your heart stops clapping, right? So your heart is cherishing your life, right? Clapping for you. Got it, boys? Yes. Sorry? Lub dub. Then definitely there is some problem in the functioning of the aortic semilunar valve. Got it? In that case, what do? That you see they will have to replace the aortic semilunar valve. There are surgeries for that. Open heart surgery, right? Everyone understood this? Everyone understood this till here? Okay, we are going to take a break for 5 minutes and then we'll discuss the cardiac cycle, okay? Alright guys, so one cardiac pump, it takes about 0.8 seconds. Yes, means that contraction of both atria and contraction of both ventricles. Now atria, they allow the blood to flow into the ventricles and then contract, it takes about 0.4 seconds, right? Ventricles contract for 0.3 seconds. So 0.4 plus 0.3 is how much? 0.7. But in the middle, there is a gap of 0.1 seconds. Now, you know that our heart is contracting and relaxing. I just told you when we were 4 weeks old in embryo form till the death. Does the heart need to relax or not? Or take rest or not? It needs to, right? Otherwise, it will not work properly. So, in between, there is a rest period of 0.1 seconds. Now, when you see there is atrial systole, this is for 0.4 seconds, right? In the middle, then there is rest for 0.1 seconds, and then there is ventricular systole for 0.3 seconds. So it is total 0.8 seconds of cardiac cycle. Now please pay attention everyone, this is very, very important thing I am going to tell you. Now what happens when the blood comes from this superior vena cava and inferior vena cava into the right atrium, and the blood coming from both lungs into the left atrium. Now blood is coming with some pressure, right? Definitely the pressure is low. just 5 millimeters of mercury because it is coming from the veins. It is low, still it has pressure, right? With that pressure, blood will come into the ventricles without even the contraction of the atria. Without even contraction of the atria, blood will come where? Into the ventricles. 80% of the blood will flow over here. Still now the 20% is left. Now that 20% of the blood will be pumped by the systole of the atria. Now remember, I just told you in the last lecture that atrial systole means contraction of the atria, right? Rest of the 20% will be pumped into the ventricles when the atria will contract. So blood flowing from all the areas of the atria passively. Passively means that no energy is consumed. 80% of the blood moves into the atria passively. And 20% of the blood which is present in the atria will come by actively, right? By the contraction of the atria. Understood, everyone? Now when the blood will reach here into the ventricles, then ventricles, they contract for 0.3 seconds. And when they will contract, they will pump the blood where? Into the aorta and pulmonary trunk. Understood? So this is how one complete cardiac cycle, cardiac cycle completes. Now here, the thing to understand is that 80% of the blood from the atria enters into the ventricles passively. Understood? Only 20% of the blood which is left behind then comes by the contraction of atria. Understood? Because you see, when the pressure will be applied by the blood, these flaps, they will become what? Open. Understood? Because of the blood pressure itself. And then they will remain open when the atria will contract. More pressure will be applied. Understood? And then when the ventricles, they will close. We have just learned that what will happen because of the pressure of the blood. Look here. When the ventricles will contract, the blood will be pumped. So the blood will apply pressure where? Onto the flaps. And what will happen? These flaps will close because of the pressure. Right? But at the same time, we learned over here that these chordae tendineae and papillary muscles, they prevent these valves, these flaps from overturning. Right? And the blood will be pumped into the blood vessels, into the arteries, which will take it out. Yes. Any question, boys? Now one topic is left. That is the conduction system of heart, which is also called as control of the heart, this contraction of the heart, right? So we'll discuss that tomorrow, inshallah.